Joining me now from Fox News headquarters in New York, Kellyanne Conway, counselor to the president. Kellyanne, welcome back to Fox News Sunday. Good to have you here this morning.
Thank you, Martha.
So, Kellyanne, the president tweeted this weekend, the riots in Charlottesville a year ago resulted in senseless death and division. We must come together as a nation. I condemn all types of racism and acts of violence. Peace to all Americans, he wrote. But in a new poll, 57% say that race relations are actually worse under President Trump since he became president. So does he need more than tweets to be convincing on this issue, Kellyanne?
Two things I'd say about that, Martha. First is you even saw when our first African-American president, Barack Obama, left office, there was very mixed polling, a very mixed assessment of race relations 8 years after he was in office. So this is not unique to President Trump in terms of people wanting to improve relations. I think we should all agree that we always want relations to improve among people of different backgrounds and different races. Secondly, I think you've got to look at President Trump's record with respect to men and women of color. The record low unemployment rate among African Americans, Hispanic Americans, Asian Americans, and others is remarkable, and it's owing to his policies, his bold leadership, that there are so many more people of color who are able to access these new jobs in manufacturing, in professional industries, as well in mining as well. Carpentry is way up. And yet this president also is for school choice and charters. He is trying to give those who are trapped in conventional school systems that are failing these students another choice. The prison reform initiative that Jared Kushner and President Trump have put forth is meant to help all people of all races, but we know disproportionately many of our prisons, those are African Americans who are languishing in these prisons, those who have paid their debt to society, Martha, and can re-enter to have the skills, education, the opportunities, and indeed make themselves available for these 6.6 million jobs that are out there. This is a president who's doing all of that. And even my former colleague in the West Wing, Omarosa, agreed with much of that when she was there.
Well, I want to talk about that in a moment. But, you know, when you look at the disparity in the numbers, when President Obama left office, 37% said that he had made race relations worse. And as I pointed out just a moment ago, the number for the president right now is that 57% of those asked believe that he has made relations worse. So given the fact that, as you point out, the unemployment numbers are better for minorities and all of the efforts that the president has made, which you just mentioned, that are trying to lift all boats, there still seems to be that feeling, as his critics say, that he doesn't want to make America great again. He wants to make America white again. Can he be more articulate, more outspoken on this issue? And, you know, it goes to one of the other things that we talked about this week, the tweets about the NFL players. Some people say he's tougher on NFL players and athletes than he is on the movements that we're about to see this afternoon in Washington.
Well, that's just a terrible thing to say. This president last August 14th said the following. It doesn't get much coverage, so I'm going to read it. Quote, racism is evil, and those who cause violence in its name are criminals and thugs, including the KKK, neo-Nazis, white supremacists, and other hate groups that are repugnant to everything we hold dear as Americans. That quote doesn't get much play. That was the President of the United States, President Trump, last August 14th, denouncing specifically KKK, neo-Nazis, white supremacists, after already, and before that and after that, denouncing racism, bigotry, hatred, and violence, as he did again yesterday. As for the national anthem, the president made very clear that he believes it's not a big ask to have people stand for the flag and the national anthem at football games and elsewhere, and that separately, Martha, if these professional athletes want to go back into their communities or anywhere they want, where they have considerable platforms and in most cases very big popularity, that they should go ahead and make their voices known there. On the field, when people go to play for a football game, it sounds like the NFL's new policy actually agreed with this. They said if you're going to be on the field, you can't be kneeling. You can stay in the locker room. Well, there you go.
Let me go back to Omarosa Menegal, because she's speaking out, as you well know. She was in charge of African American outreach for the White House. She has said that she was fired because she knew too much about a tape on which the president used the N-word. She also has said that she heard him call your husband derogatory names as well. Did the president do either of those two things, Kellyanne?
No, he did not. I have never heard the President of the United States use a racial slur about anyone. I simply haven't heard it. Martha, today is 2 years to the day that he asked me to be his campaign manager. I've worked alongside of him for over 2 straight years now without interruption. I have never once heard him say that about anyone. And I never heard Omarosa complain that she had heard the president say it about anyone either when she was there. She's contradicted her own accounts. She told ABC News the day after she was fired that she had resigned. She's now saying she was fired. She told ABC News the day after she was fired that quote, Donald Trump, no, he's not a racist, that she wouldn't have been there. She also had a very glowing appraisal of Donald Trump, the businessman, the leader of The Apprentice, the candidate, and indeed the president, specifically in trying to reach out to African Americans, helping the HBCUs, historically black colleges and universities, through an executive order, through workforce development, through prison reform. Omarosa criticized the Congressional Black Caucus for not meeting with him.
You heard what the president said at Bedminster yesterday. He called her a lowlife, which raises an obvious question. Why was she ever hired in the first place if the president thinks she's a lowlife?
No, he thinks I think he believes it's a low blow to write a book riddled with lies and accusations and insinuations, whether it's 30 pieces of silver or a 7-figure book advance for you, your publicist, your ghostwriters, and others. All that's changed was this book deal and her being fired. So I think he probably feels very betrayed, and I feel very disappointed because I always had a good working relationship with Omarosa. And the fact is, in the West Wing, I never heard her a single time, not on the campaign in the West Wing ever, even after that, say that she heard such things. My husband very strongly said this is absurd all the way around, that the president would not use these words about him. My husband is half Filipino. And I've just never heard that, and I think that matters. Also, I think Omarosa missed a great opportunity here, Martha, to take credit for all the wonderful gains the president has made for people of color, whether it's the HBCUs, the workforce development, the historically low unemployment numbers, the accessibility of more jobs, the prison reform, the drug reform that I work on firsthand on behalf of the president. She should have said, I'm really glad that all of our labors are bearing fruit, but instead she's trying to sell books and settle scores. And you've got to be anti-Trump for those to be successful. It's very disappointing.
Let me ask you one more question before I let you go on a new topic. On August 16th, the Boston Globe has asked newspapers across the country to put out editorials essentially attacking the president for his dirty war, this is their quote, against the free press. How do you respond to that?
That's what they do every single day. Every single day, the mainstream media, which now has anywhere from a 17 to a 20% approval rating, that I've seen, is virulently anti-Trump. And they're not just being skeptical, they're being cynical. And they make everything about them. Even at these rallies, Martha, the press covers the part that's about the press. The people hear the policies that are about the people. And I think that the press, many of them are trying to get the president instead of get the story. Many of them, as you full well know, are trying to become the story. It increases their speaking fees. They get to go on late night TV and make fun of the president, everybody around him. That is not journalism. And I don't know how people can feel that the modern reporting and journalism industry includes people like this new Sarah Long that was hired by the New York Times, who says she wonders how quickly white people can burn, cancel white people, makes fun of white men. You've got Mark Caputo from Politico last week in Tampa calling the Trump supporters, quote, garbage people, and saying if you line them all up next to each other, they'd have a full set of teeth. That's the modern state of journalism. I'm sure you, as a responsible and respected reporter, would object to that. So look, they are not trying, they're trying to erase this presidency. He's a democratically elected president, a very successful one at that. But many of them are in a dying industry that, unlike the Trump Corporation, is not very profitable. And they should try to go out and learn what they keep getting wrong about Trump and his supporters and his policies, and stop just being so reflexively, invectively, virulently anti-Trump.
Kellyanne, thank you very much. Good to see you today.
Martha.
Thanks for joining us.